As the Secretary General of the United Nations, an organization of 147 member states who represent almost all of the human inhabitants of the planet Earth, I send greetings on behalf of the people of our planet.
So, we've heard something about the Golden Record and the history of the Golden Record. Why is that significant for us working on big history this semester? Well, I think it's a very important symbol of what we're trying to do in this module. It's a very important representation of what we believe that big history should be about and some of the ways in which we can tell it. Waldheim, in his opening to the Golden Record, talks about how we will teach if called upon and to be taught if we are fortunate. Both myself and Christina Mobley believe very strongly that we are called upon to teach you. But in this module, we're not the experts on everything. We're not the experts on the Big Bang or on the origins of life on Earth. We're all learning this together. And we hope that we will be fortunate to be taught as well when we do this module, that we will be taught by the things that we read together with you, and that your ideas will come and teach us, that we will create this module together, that we will be fortunate to be taught by you. And that's not just some easy thing to say, that's a genuinely felt thing. Waldheim also says as well that he knows that humanity is just a small part of an immense universe that surrounds us, and that he steps out, or he hopes Voyager will step out with what he says is humility and hope. Those are values that we both very strongly believe in. Big history is to show you and to remind us that humanity is just a very, very small part of a much bigger reality. And that the history that we teach and what we study in university is itself just a very small fraction, even of the history of humanity itself. And we want to try and give you a sense of a bigger scale, a broader scale. And we think that the Voyager record the Golden Record is one interesting way of doing that. The other thing that we want to get across to you, and I think that the Voyager record is a wonderful case study, example, symbol of this. Some big history, for example, in wonderful books like David Christian's Maps of Time or Origin Story, sometimes I think we can lose a sense of the human scale. It's a criticism that's sometimes made of big history, which is, okay, you do these huge timescales, 13.8 billion years, but what about the lived life? What about the lived experience? What about the now? What about the year 1789? What about the year whatever? Well, the Voyager record, I think, addresses that. Some of the images start off, there's 115 images on the Voyager Golden Record. Of course, today with our technology, we could stream 1 billion. Voyager would be live streaming to the universe, the entirety of YouTube. But in 1977, putting it on a record, they actually had to make decisions. They had to choose what they could put on, because the recording capacity was so small. The Voyager probes have got less power in them than your mobile phone. As I say, now they're pinging back from 11 billion miles with the power less than the power of a fridge light. So they had to choose what images to put on. So they put on big images. They put on images about how to find the Earth in the universe, where our solar system was in relationship to other galaxies, in relationship to the night sky. They put on big images from science. But when it came to images of humans, they didn't put on images of kings, of presidents, of famous artworks. They put on images of everyday people. A woman doing her shopping in a supermarket. A family sitting around a dinner table, eating dinner. People sitting in the street, ordinary people, sitting in the street, in the sunshine, smiling at the camera. They remembered that big history or big representations must include bigness, but also smallness. We need the human scale. We need the scale of our lived lives, as well as the macroscopic universal scale. They give us some of that details of experience on the Voyager Golden Record that I think is so important and is so fundamental to how we believe big history should be done. The local and the cosmic are included in that record, and on some of the videos that we'll be putting up for you to follow, and the links, and there's many others that you can find online yourself. I think if you look at the images, you will see those two scales balancing out with each other. The big, the massive, the huge, the 13.8 billion, and the single day, the single hour of an individual. And we want to capture both of those in this module. So those are the main things that I think that the Golden Record can teach us, and the way that it's taught me, that I've been fortunate enough to be taught by it. We also need to remember as well that the Voyager Golden Record is ultimately not aimed at the aliens. The chances of aliens ever finding either of the probes is infinitesimally small in our vast universe. There are 100 billion stars in our galaxy, and there are 100 billion galaxies in the known universe. The chance of it being found is infinitesimally small. That's how big space is. It's really aimed at us. It's really aimed back to Earth and back to our own planet. It is a profound essay on what it means to be human in the late 20th century, and what it means to be living on the planet Earth in the late 20th century, and now of course into the 21st century. And that was underscored on the 14th of February 1990, when I think one of the most moving photographs, one of the most moving images in human history was created. It's not an image you would have on your wall as a poster. It's not particularly beautiful. It's not even particularly striking until you know what it is. But on the 14th of February 1990, on the express desires of a man called Carl Sagan, one of the great popularisers of science in the late 20th century, and the man who was really the mastermind behind the Golden Record itself, had persuaded NASA, against great resistance, that the cameras should be turned around of Voyager 1 one last time, and one final photograph should be taken as Voyager 1 left our solar system. But it was not a photograph of Jupiter or any of the outer planets. It wasn't a picture of the stars. It was a picture of our own planet. This picture has become known as the pale blue dot, because in a single beam of sunlight stretching across this picture, smaller than 1 pixel of this picture, there is a tiny blue dot that is our planet, our home, the world that we belong to. Just before he died, Carl Sagan, one of his last books, Pale Blue Dot, reflected on the meanings of this picture. And as a homage to him, and because I can't say it any better, let me read his reflections to you. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of the fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our self-imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbour life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Those are the values and the ideas that we'd like to explore with you in Big History this semester. We're looking forward to teaching if called upon, and if fortunate, to be taught. Thank you.